What do you think about Port Arthur now?
Well, it seems to have loosened up a little bit since I left.
Janis Joplin was a rock and roll icon with a voice that defined a generation. But she didn't hold back when it came to sharing her opinions. People who like music think of Janis Joplin as the barefoot hippie queen with the whiskey. Voice soaked in blood and spirit-free piece of my heart, the counterculture icon who brought blues rock to its knees, the passionate performer who lived and loved without limits. You just feel yourself. It's like when you're making love with someone and know how completely supremely but behind the feather boas and Southern Comfort bottles was a deeply opinionated artist with strict standards for musical authenticity, while Joplin presented a free-spirited public persona. People close to her saw times when her bohemian exterior broke, showing scathing reviews of performers who didn't meet her high standards for honest emotion. Janis had zero tolerance for fakery. Her former road manager John Cook said in a rare 2017 interview. She could spot a fake from a mile away and wasn't shy about calling it out, especially after a few drinks. From heated arguments in the San Francisco scene to insulting comments about pop stars who represented everything she was against, Joplin's private thoughts showed a fiercely protective attitude toward the blues tradition she held dear. Her musical feuds weren't just personal squabbles. They showed fundamental disagreements about artistic integrity, emotional vulnerability, and what rock music should really stand for. Today, we're listing the 5 singers she supposedly couldn't stand, along with reasons why even some of music's most famous voices found themselves on the receiving end of the Pearl's notoriously harsh criticism. 5 Grace Slick. Our countdown starts with a rivalry between 2 San Francisco sound queens, Janis Joplin and Jefferson Airplane's Grace Slick. While both defined different aspects of the psychedelic era, their relationship was reportedly marked by competitive tension and philosophical disagreements about how to perform. According to drummer Spencer Dryden, they first met in the Haight-Ashbury scene of 1966, when both were on the verge of national recognition. Joplin is said to have been suspicious of Slick's formally trained singing style. People say that Janis told them behind the scenes at the Fillmore, "Grace sings from her head, not her guts." In a video from the 1990s, Dryden said, "The tension rose during the Monterey Pop Festival in 1967 when both women gave breakthrough performances." Photographer Jim Marshall heard Joplin say, "That girl looks great in those boots, but she's just pretending to be dangerous," after seeing the Jefferson Airplane set. It's one thing to sing about change, and another thing to actually live one. What seemed like a natural partnership between 2 groundbreaking rock women turned into competition, when Slick's more controlled intellectual approach won praise from critics. According to Big Brother guitarist Sam Andrew, Janis didn't like that Grace could turn it on and off. She would say, "When I'm on that stage, I'm bleeding for real. Grace is just acting." While they were different, both women broke down barriers for female artists in the male-dominated rock world, though Joplin is said to have said she did it with more soul. Jim Morrison. The trouble between the Doors and Janis Joplin. Jim Morrison is one of the most volatile personalities in rock music. Their short but intense meetings in the late 1960s are said to have left Joplin with a lasting dislike for Morrison's stage character and poetic pretensions, according to Doors keyboardist Ray Manzarek. The fight started at a party after the Monterey Pop Festival, where Morrison is said to have made bold advances toward Joplin. It is said that Jackie told him, "You're not a real bluesman. You're just a pretty boy with leather pants and daddy issues." In his autobiography, Manzer wrote that their professional rivalry grew stronger as both artists became famous across the country, even though they went about becoming rock stars in different ways. Morrison used poetic mysticism and Joplin used raw emotional vulnerability to fight for the same album sales and festival slots. They were friends and knew each other. After seeing the Doors perform, Peggy Caserta said that Joplin said, "He's reciting poetry up there, not singing. When that boy actually feels something instead of just thinking about feeling something, maybe then I'll listen." According to sound engineer Owsley Bear Stanley, the last fight happened at a festival in 1969 when Joplin allegedly broke into Morrison's dressing room and told her, "Your problem is you don't know the difference between being a rock star and an artist. I do both every night." Although they had disagreements, both singers had self-destructive habits that led to their untimely deaths within months of each other. Joplin reportedly told friends after one of their meetings, "That boy's going the same place I am. He's just enjoying the ride less 3. Paul McCartney. Few people would have thought that the earthy blues rock queen and the melodic Beatle would have a bad relationship, but people close to Joplin say that her feelings toward McCartney showed how complicated her relationship was with mainstream pop success. Their worlds briefly collided in 1968 when the Beatles were recording the White Album and Big Brother was working in a nearby London studio session. Bobby Keys, a musician, saw their awkward meeting and said that Joplin wasn't impressed by McCartney's polished professionalism, which Janis reportedly told her band afterward. "He makes pretty little songs for pretty little people. I make music that bleeds." In his book, Keys wrote that the philosophical gap grew wider as Joplin struggled with meeting business needs while staying true to her art. Gabriel Meikler, who produced her last record, said that Joplin often used McCartney as a contrast to her own style. She was said to have said, "Paul writes songs like he's making products. I sing like I'm ripping out my insides." Laura, Joplin's sister, said that what annoyed her the most was how easy it seemed for McCartney to be successful. "It is said that Jackie once told me, that man has never had to fight for a single note. Every door has opened for him while I'm still kicking them down." In a family memoir, Laura Joplin wrote that she felt the irony of the fact that her friends knew that even though she didn't like McCartney's commercial draw, she secretly wanted the same kind of fame. In a late-night talk, biographer Myra Friedman said that Joplin supposedly said, "Maybe I'm just jealous that he can write a perfect 3-note pop song, and I have to scream my guts out to make people listen too." Joan Baez talks about the battle between Janis Joplin and folk star Joan Baez is a great example of the generational and stylistic split that happened in the 1960s music scene. Both women built their careers on being honest and expressing their feelings, but their approaches to music and action are said to have made each other tired that never went away. Linda Eastman, a common friend and photographer, says the 1967 Monterey Pop Festival was their first big meeting, and it set the tone for their friendship. Nicey is said to have seen Joan's perfect performance and told her bandmates, "She sings like someone who read about suffering in a book, not someone who has lived it." Eastman said in a hindsight interview that their philosophical differences went beyond music and included politics and way of life. The disciplined intellectual side of the protest movement was represented by Baez, while the hedonistic and emotionally raw side was portrayed by Joplin. Janis said, "Joan thinks changing the world means writing clever protest songs. I think it means living without any rules at all. According to Michael Lang, the festival organizer, things got heated backstage at Woodstock in 1969 when someone suggested that they perform together. Joplin allegedly replied, "Her voice is too pretty and her message is too clean. I don't sing pretty and I don't live clean." Even though they were different, both women paved the way for female artists in a male-dominated field. Historian Richie Underberger pointed out the irony that Janis was said to have thought Joan was too controlled and perfect, while many reviewers saw Joplin as the real emotional force. Baez's precise folk style missed the contrast that they offered to their audiences. David Dalton, a former Rolling Stone writer, said that Joplin once made fun of a Baez concert. He said, "Look at them. They're all sitting down and politely nodding their heads. My people are on their feet screaming." That's the difference between making people think and making them feel. This basic disagreement about the purpose of music, intellectual engagement versus visceral reaction, is said to have kept them from getting closer until eventually, after Joplin's death, when Baez performed at a memorial service. Peggy Caserta, a close friend of Joplin's, later said that she thought this was the funniest thing ever because it was the exact kind of clean show that Joplin spent her whole life fighting against, even though they never got along. Each singer made an indelible mark on American music, but they were on different ends of the counterculture spectrum. Barbra Streisand, at the top of our list, is Joplin's most intense and surprising musical dislike, her dislike for Barbra Streisand. Even though they both had powerful voices and emotional performances, Columbia Records executive Clive Davis, who worked with both artists, says that the two were opposites in the late 1960s when it came to female performance. Joplin's anger came to the surface at a label event where Streisand was being honored. It is said that Jackie pushed back a shot and said, "They spend millions making her sound flawed enough to sound human. I have to fight to keep them from cleaning up what makes me real." Davis wrote in his autobiography that Linda Gravenight, the famous costume designer who made Joplin's stage clothes, said the singer used Stravinsky to show how different her artistic theory was. It is said that Jackie said, "Barbra hits every note perfectly but doesn't feel any of them. I might miss a note, but you'll feel every damn one I do." This shows how different their careers are. Streisand's sudden mainstream success and Joplin's fight to get noticed on her own terms are said to have made them angry. A music journalist named Ben Fong Torres quoted Joplin as saying, "Barbra sells the illusion of emotion while keeping herself perfectly safe. I give people the real thing, and it's killing me." Sound engineer Eddie Kramer said that Joplin stopped everything when Funny Girl was playing in the studio during Pearl recording sessions and said, "Turn that off. That's everything I'm trying not to be." Here are the 5 singers who were reportedly criticized directly by Janis Joplin: Grace Slick for her intellectual approach, Jim Morrison for his poetic posturing, Paul McCartney for his perfect melodies, Joan Baez for her pure protest, and finally Barbra Streisand for her controlled emotion. Each connection shows something about how strongly Joplin feels about music. Not just the star drama, but also how they bring out the best in people makes these feuds so interesting. Joplin's unwavering dedication to emotional truth in a field where image and output are becoming more important. She wasn't just being mean. Her comments came from a passionate artist who thought music should be expensive to make and important to listen to.